Last month, I put out a video listing the 31 horror movies I was planning to watch for October. However, the 31 movies I actually watched last month were Smile, Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, Beyond Reanimator, Hell Night, Constantine, X, Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 3, Hellraiser 2022, Frontiers, Grimcuddy, Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, Halloween Ends, Honeydew, From Beyond, Trick or Treat, I'm Just Fucking With You, Evil Dead, Satan's Slaves Communion, Frankenstein's Army, Dracula, Old People, Jeepers Creepers Reborn, Pet Sematary 2, Werewolf by Night, Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, Slaughterhouse, VHS 99, Berserker, and Terrifier 2. As you can see, just like I do every year, I barely stuck to my original list at all. I somehow only watched 10 of the 31 movies I had planned. And while I was looking back to track my abysmal 32% movie watching success rate, I also thought it'd be fun to list and briefly talk about the 5 best movies I watched in October. Specifically, 5 movies I watched for the very first time. Otherwise, this list would be pretty boring and would just consist of me talking about Trick or Treat, X, From Beyond, Evil Dead, and Reanimator. Starting my list of my 5 favorite October watches is Hellraiser 2022. Truthfully, when I first watched this, I didn't love it. But the more days that pass and the more I continue to think about it, the more I appreciate this Hellraiser reboot. It's still easily one of the 3 best Hellraiser sequels, and it did deliver a lot of what I was looking for in a new Hellraiser movie. The new Cenobite designs were great, I was happy to see a reappearance of the Chatterer, I like the monkey paw situation, and the use of Lament, Lore, Laudorant, Liminal, Lazarus, and Leviathan. I also like the nerve-ending device, and the subplot centered around it. Really, I would have preferred that to be the main plot, and just replace the drug addiction metaphor story entirely. I just wasn't super interested in any of these main characters, which is probably my biggest gripe overall. In the first 2 films, the Cenobites were never really the villains. They were indifferent, apathetic overseers of sensation. The real villains were the people, Julia and Frank. As cool as Pinhead and the Cenobites look, they aren't Freddy or Jason. Hellraiser has always been about the human characters. I just didn't like that the new film had the Cenobites positioned more like slasher villains, acting like a pack of dogs, chasing down a group of nothing characters. Though still, again overall, even with all its flaws, I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and thought this was a dark, unforgiving installment that added some interesting elements to the overall Hellraiser universe. Number 2 on my list was I'm Just Fucking With You. This one came recommended to me from Rainbow Frights, and is a Blumhouse film from their Into the Dark anthology series. I'm Just Fucking With You is about a pair of siblings suffering through a night of frightening practical jokes during their stay at a secluded motel. And I gotta say, I had quite a bit of fun watching this. This had hints of Psycho and Vacancy mixed with a bit of Creep. I say specifically Creep because throughout this entire film, both you and the main character are trying to decipher the motel manager's intentions. Is he a harmless goofball or a serious threat? Are these strange interactions a result of some social anxiety or sinister intentions? What is the truth? What is a lie? What is his endgame with all these practical jokes? I'm Just Fucking With You had a sufficient amount of twists and revelations that kept me guessing and ultimately delivered an enjoyable, colorful, fairly funny, fairly fun, isolated set motel thriller. Number 3 on my top 5 was Werewolf by Night. Maybe I'm stretching the boundaries of a top 5 movies list by including this, but I really loved Werewolf by Night, and I wanted to include it. I thought the shortened runtime really worked for Werewolf by Night. This didn't drag on, it didn't have any unnecessary filler, it was just a tight, self-contained story. After watching this, my main takeaway was I hope we get more special presentations from Marvel. They're a great way to introduce minor characters and experiment with genres. Werewolf by Night felt unique and distinct compared to the many other carbon copy Marvel movies and shows. I love the 1930s monster movie aesthetic, I appreciated the use of more blood and brutality, the score was awesome, and I thought having a practical werewolf design over a CGI one was very smart. Obviously, I'm a big fan of horror and the supernatural, so I was like a kid in a candy store, seeing Sasquatches, mermaids, vampires, werewolves, and motherfucking Wendigo get introduced into the MCU. Werewolf by Night as a whole was a fantastic appetizer and made me want to see more Elsa Bloodstone, more Jack Russell, and definitely more Man-Thing. Fourth on my top 5 list was VHS 99. I've talked about my love for the VHS series quite a bit in the past. It's introduced me to a lot of my favorite horror directors, and I just love anthologies in general. It is a great vehicle for short, interesting horror concepts that wouldn't work as full-length features. With VHS specifically, I've always had the rule that as long as 3 of the 5 segments are good, I'm happy. You can't always bat 1000, and I'm happy to sit through 2 subpar segments in exchange for 3 good ones. Based on that rule, I liked VHS 1, I liked VHS 2, I didn't like VHS Viral, I liked VHS 94, and I liked VHS 99. Even though I was not a big fan of the shredding or suicide bid segments, I thought Gawkers was a solid, short, and effective segment that utilized a creature I don't think I've ever seen in any horror movie. To Hell and Back was really amusing. I always like seeing depictions of hell, and the concept of 2 bozos trying to journey back from a botched demonic ritual was very clever. And last, Ozzy's Dungeon was by far the best segment in VHS 99. I don't want to do a top 5 list within a top 5 list, but Ozzy's Dungeon is easily in my top 5 all-time VHS segments, alongside Safe Haven, Storm Drain, Slumber Party Alien Abduction, and The Subject. Ozzy's Dungeon had an incredible premise. It gave me flashbacks to watching late night Nickelodeon. It's disgusting, it's depraved, it's hilarious, it's mean-spirited, it's tense, it's sad, and it features an ending so out of left field, I could not believe what I was watching. Honestly, I think VHS 99 is worth watching for Ozzy's Dungeon alone. Last on my list, and the best movie I watched in the month of October, was Terrifier 2. Rarely does a movie that I've been looking forward to for 6 years live up to expectations, but holy shit was Terrifier everything I could have wanted and more. When I read the headlines that people were puking and fainting in theaters, I was very skeptical. I thought it was just typical overblown horror marketing, similar to movies like Veronica being hailed as the scariest movie ever, but I gotta say, I can definitely understand why someone would have fainted during that one specific scene. It just kept going and getting more and more disgusting. I tried describing the scene to someone who said they weren't ever going to watch Terrifier 2, but were still curious what the buzz was all about, and they made me stop talking after the 4th sentence. It was that gross. Terrifier 2 was pretty much everything you want with a sequel. Bigger budget, more kills, more blood, more art, and more insanity. I know I am definitely going to buy myself a copy of that film as soon as I can, and Terrifier 2 will absolutely be in my future Halloween rotation every year alongside Evil Dead and Trick or Treat. Alright, those are my 5 favorite horror films from October. Please let me know in the comments what was the best movie you watched this Halloween season. I am extremely curious to hear what people were watching and what they were enjoying. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, Horror Flicks with Nick. Twice a week I post horror reviews, commentaries, and short recommendations for horror movies you should watch on Netflix and other streaming services. Thank you for watching my Halloween recap. I hope everyone had a great October. I'll see you all back next year for a hopefully more accurate 31 movies list.